Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if you have your Sun in Cancer and Virgo rising. This combination is double feminine energy. Has nothing to do with how you look or carry yourself if you're a man. It just simply means that you may be more introverted, and so you project your energy inwards. You know, people who are introverted people, they can have a very rich inner life. Some people think that introverted means isolated and, social anxiety. It doesn't have to be like that at all. And this combination can be just somebody who is quiet and enjoys the simple things in life and isn't very flamboyant. Now, we can't say that completely because Cancer happens to be right by the sign, actually two signs that are very extroverted. Gemini on the one side and Leo on the other. And, I was going to say definitely Leo could give off that kind of vibe, but Gemini can give Leo a run for its money in terms of, being expressive, definitely talkative. So you might have inner planets that are in either one of those signs or both of them. So what we're talking about here is like your Mercury, what is that in? What is your Mars in? What is your Venus in? And that can change things up. And I'm not even talking here about the moon sign too. What if your moon is in Aries? So yeah, there could be a lot of difference than what I'm talking about here. This is a general look at this combination. I like to do the Sun ascendant because it really does give different perspectives of how the person appears to others, plus how they may physically look, and that's the ascendant, and then kind of what their core personality is represented by the Sun, and their core aspirations, the dreams that you have, that can be represented by the Sun as well. So it does give kind of a nice little look at a person's personality, but it doesn't take everything into account. So I just want to make that very, very clear. So I'm going to talk about these things individually, but just talking about it as a whole, these two signs form a sextile if they are within a certain degree span from one another, which is called an orb. If they have a certain orb, they're going to be a sextile, which is a cooperative angle. And basically what that means is that what these two points represent when they come together is going to be harmonious. For instance, if you have the Sun squaring the ascendant, there's going to be a lot of frustration between how the person really is and how they come across. And they're going to be kind of like irked about it. It might be like kind of a sore spot to them because they might not be able to even see why it's happening. It might be a blind spot that they have. So, and in my case, for instance, I have the Sun in Sagittarius and I have Taurus rising. That they're close within a certain degree span to be what's known as an in conjunction, which is 150 degrees apart, give or take what I was talking about. I think I might have like a perfect in conjunction or something. I think they're both the same degree in their own signs. So the point is that that is kind of a weird angle where it just is so mismatched that it makes it very, very hard for people to get a handle on who that person is. Probably the story of my life. But anyway, it's not a cooperative angle like a sextile is. Even if you don't have these points in a sextile, an official sextile, the fact that they are in these signs means that there's going to be some common ground, because water and earth are harmonious when you look at them in terms of elements. And one of the things that they're harmonious about is life on Earth, because the physical plane, for instance, when we talk about money, we talk about even like the body, which we're talking about with health. These kinds of issues can be something that these two elements grasp naturally, innately. And that can lead to even careers. Like, for instance, I could see this combination being in the healthcare field, especially in something like being a nurse, or, with Cancer, because Cancer rules the house of home and family, and Cancer is a sign of the mother. Maybe it would be somebody in the neonatal unit or something like that. A midwife even, or a doula. Anything that deals with money, I think, is another big one for this combination, because the earth and the water, Cancer as a water sign naturally is, and especially I would say Cancer is very concerned about security matters, wanting to feel financially secure. Virgo is an earth sign, so it just naturally is wired to be practical, be very productive and practical. And so I'm going to talk about them separately, but I just wanted to mention that part of the situation that deals with the, just the double influence. So looking at the ascendant, because it's in Virgo, it means that you are ruled by Mercury. Mercury is a planet that also rules Gemini, and it deals with intellectual matters, communication, that sort of thing. And when somebody has Mercury at their ascendant, wearing glasses is a no-brainer. That could be your signature look. That could be the way that you come across is very intelligent, maybe quite introverted. Virgo can be self-conscious. This is a big one to keep in mind, because I think this is, very inhibited. And because the rising sign deals with how we behave, that can create that sort of inhibition that prevents somebody from maybe doing something new and not doing it well. Virgo is a sign of the perfectionist. And because Cancer is a very hypersensitive type of a sign, and by the way, I just want people to know who have this combination that I have your number, because I have observed this about Cancer, is that they can dish it out, but they can't take they can really dish it out. That's the funny thing about Cancer. They I look at the cardinal signs as rather aggressive in their own way. Even Libra, you can say assertive, but I would even go as far as saying aggressive sometimes. And sometimes that lends itself to dealings with other people. And with Cancer, sometimes they can be maybe even saying it in jest, where they're teasing somebody, but they really know exactly where to land that verbal blow. And with Virgo there, it's going to be a done deal. And if you have Mercury in Gemini, the snark is probably flying a lot, because Virgo is very snarky. I have the moon in Virgo myself, and I understand about all of the things that happen with Virgo that have to do with inhibition and the like. And I just want to say too that in terms of perfectionism, because Virgo is at the ascendant, there could even be body issues And I would say, both genders could fall prey to this, but women, because of the conditioning of women, social conditioning, not being perfect and trying to be perfect. So you have to nip that in the bud because, it can really be taken to extremes. And I did the chart of Michael Jackson recently, and I was noting, Michael Jackson was a sun in Virgo, but he had Pisces moon and Pisces ascendant. And Virgo and Pisces are opposing signs. So there's always like that thing that ties the two signs, the complementary signs together. And I think perfectionism with Pisces, I would describe it as over idealism. But with Virgo, it's really looking at what is in front of you and, the so-called facts, which can lead you to not give yourself enough credit a lot of times if you don't see tangible results in things. And this is problematic in the sense that you may be insecure because of certain things and carry yourself that way. I think as you get older, and I always talk about the first Saturn return as maybe that liberation for the person transcending being hard on themselves as much. Maybe then you can relax a little bit more. But the challenge here is that Cancer can be sometimes have issues. Usually we're talking about on the emotional level, and that can exacerbate any of those perfectionistic tendencies because, Virgo is not really emotional in and of itself. It's an earth sign, so it just wants to be very rational, practical, and Cancer is a water sign. So that's who you really are. So you may give this very dry version of yourself that isn't emotional, and people have no idea how emotional you might really be. And that might come as a big shock to them when they get to know you better. And for sure, if you're in a relationship, that can be problematic in the sense that you, with the sun in Cancer, you might be quite demanding of love, demanding a proof of love, demanding of someone, loving you in the right way. And that can actually work against you. So why does Cancer do this? Well, Cancer, like I said, Cancer is a cardinal sign. So it is very active in pursuing getting its emotional needs met. Whereas a sign like Pisces is going to be more passive. Pisces is a mutable water sign. So Pisces people tend to adapt to the circumstances that they find themselves in. And Cancer people try to take charge of situations, and if they need to change that situation. And I think in a lot of ways, Cancer has the upper hand compared to a sign like Pisces because it does take action versus kind of waiting for the outer world to give you what you want. That's very, very tricky, and you can wait for a long time for anything to fundamentally change. But yeah, so Cancer people do take action and also are very assertive, and that's a polite way of saying aggressive, about getting their emotional needs met. But here's the tricky part of all of this. First of all, you may already feel insecure because Virgo, and I would say having it at the ascendant, or in my case, the moon sign, versus even like the sun. I think the sun, because of its influence, can give the more positive traits of Cancer. But having this combination can make you a little bit less sure of yourself. And when people feel unsure of themselves, what do? They try to, well, at least in some cases, in this case, because your sun is your core self, in this lifetime at least, that you want to have that emotional sense of safety and fulfillment. And so you're looking for it in another person, another relationship. And of course, I can't go too much further into that without knowing your Venus sign, without knowing a lot of other things that are going on, but I'm just putting it out there. I would say for people who have their ascendant in Virgo, that they're going to look very pure. Like, I don't know how else to put it. They're going to look very clean cut. They're going to have this wholesome quality. Wholesome, that was the word I was looking for. Which, by the way, as a moon in Virgo, I really sometimes get hung up on words, and wholesome is used in such a strange context by younger people these days that doesn't seem appropriate, but I digress. And so this can be, it doesn't matter what hair color you have, but I notice that there are some actresses and actors who are blonde and and very pale in their skin tone, who have that Virgo, that classic Virgo look where you go, you know what, I think that woman is a Virgo, even though she might be a sex symbol. There's something about her that comes across as pristine. Yeah, that's a word that I kind of wanted to use. And I think that has something to do with why Virgo is associated with, I think Virgo is the Virgin, and associated with the Hermit card. The Virgin is like the maiden. I think that's another word for it. Because let me tell you something, Virgo, people with a strong Virgo can be very lusty. Don't get it twisted by I'm not calling anybody an incel. I'm saying that there's just like a chaste quality when it comes to the Virgo ascendant. And so the person may come across very, almost like untouchable in a sense. And they also can, I would say that the average woman with Virgo rising would probably not wear much makeup. Just going by that alone, because I look at Virgo as like crunchy granola types of people, at least in terms of how they carry themselves and look, and they just don't want to be very unnatural. They want everything to be earthy. I don't know a better way of putting it. So the sun sign of Cancer can lend itself, Cancer, I don't know how I feel about saying this about Virgo, but I definitely say about Cancer that I associate it with being old-fashioned. And the reason is because Cancer rules the past. So it's very likely that a Cancer person kind of reveres the past. They idealize it, idolize it. And even if they weren't born then. So it's not about being trendy and kind of like being in the moment. It's really about maybe even lamenting, oh, life today is not as good as it was, before, and all of that. And that's because, that kind of makes sense because, the past has some distance between us and it, and we can kind of just remember the good times and not really think about the more negative or challenging times. But in any case, one thing that I would say, I don't know if this would be true very often, but I see like Cancer people, and maybe you could say even this combination, that they might be rather codependent. And if somebody, let's say somebody is a woman and they're like, I want to attract a man. Same-sex relationships, I don't think would fall into this category. I think it's more of the male-female dynamic, and the woman may feel like she has to be this ideal person, like example of like the perfect woman. And because Virgo is on the ascendant, that perfectionism kicks in, and the person may succumb to the temptation to maybe, get implants, get Botox if they're aging, do those kinds of things to make themselves enticing to the opposite sex. I think this is not going to be true 100% of the time because I read so much. It's hard for me to remember to retain what I've read. But my feeling is that some women who are Virgos, and I've seen this personally, can be very boyish even in their body type, where it's like maybe they don't have a very voluptuous figure. And so if a Cancer woman feels that is, especially, sometimes there are cultural influences too that motivate people, where everything is different. Every culture is different in what they value, what they think is attractive. And so putting implants, altering the body to kind of fit this ideal, I think that could happen in certain cases, and I think it would be problematic because it's not really investing in the highest version of what a relationship should be. It's just kind of like the surface level. And just looking at it as, am I sexy enough? Am I going to be able to have someone want to be with me? Well, somebody might want to be with you, but is it love? That's the problem when you do things like that. So I don't know. Maybe I'm going out on a limb. I do think Virgo has a lot of nervous energy, so you may be quite high strung. And that is in part because of the perfectionism. And like I said, you may have those tendencies towards social anxiety, feeling like people are looking at you and kind of judging you for every little move you make. And you may have even grown up with that in certain cases. Look to the moon sign to see what sign the moon is in for the influence of the mother, who tends to be the most influential person in a child's life. So that it makes sense that whatever the mother is doing, with the child, that's going to, be the biggest influence. But you really convey a groundedness that can put people at ease and make them think that you are responsible and competent. And so this can be good for somebody who is like interviewing for a job to have Virgo rising, because I really believe that these inner planet or inner point influences are interchangeable to some degree. So whether it's the sun, the moon, ascendants, there might be slight variations, but they're going to be very strong and active in your how you come across to others. And so that can involve paying attention to small details, being very fastidious about doing the job right. Other work that you may really gravitate towards with this combination can be teaching, I think, is a big one. Like even Cancer, the sign of Cancer can be the sign of the teacher. And I could see some people with this combination homeschooling their children, like feeling that the public schools or even the private schools are not appropriate for your children or adequate for your children, and wanting to be hands-on with them. So a stay-at-home mother, a stay-at-home parent could definitely be this combination in terms of what you decide to do as your life's work, but also being a teacher to other children. Cancer is a lover of history because it deals with the past. So that could be a particular subject that you teach, maybe at a higher grade or at the university. You could even be a writer since you're ruled by Mercury. And if your Mercury is in Gemini, that enhances it even more so. And I could see this kind, and I always say that the water signs are very creative, so I could definitely see it with the water signs. You probably have a fantastic memory with this combination, and I could see somebody writing a novel based on your events, like an autobiographical novel, almost like a memoir, but you might, and maybe you would put it like that. But this combination can produce a lot of like very intricate details combined with, strong emotional impact. And that can also be due to memories that you have that you hold very dear. There's something very sentimental about Cancer because that's being in love with the past, and that can be conveyed in artistic endeavors. So, like I said, in terms of love, I could see this combination wanting a family and wanting to have a life that is very close-knit, and maybe being more sensitive to your child having experiences rather than things, not being like overly materialistic and thinking that you need to do all these kind of artificial things to entertain your child, but really things that are both meaningful as well as even intellectually stimulating. You might want your child, if you go on a vacation, to learn about the area, not just do something that's for amusement's sake, but really like exercise the mind. That might be the kind of parent that you want to be, like always the teacher. Okay, well, I think I'm going to leave it there. I hope that this resonated, and if you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.